Welcome to live stream number 112. My name is Lars Christensen, and thank you so much for taking the time to join today's live stream. It is January 3rd. It is the first live stream of the year. Absolutely awesome to have you guys on board. Just sitting here waiting to see that we are live. I think we are live. Maybe we're not. I had to change browser. Oh, there we go. Isaac is here. Good stuff. You know, Chrome just died on me, and then I had to switch over to Internet Explorer, and I can't see the preview up here. Oh, whatever. Good to see you. It's a great start to the new year, isn't it? Just that's how it should be, I guess. Happy New Year, everybody, and thank you so much for taking the time. It's really awesome to see you again. Had a little bit of a break. If you sent me an email, I'm sorry that I haven't answered. I love your comments, your emails. I'm going to do absolutely my best to reply to all of them. I just need a bit of time. Let's jump into Fusion. Let's get into the topic. Today, we're going to talk about modeling up a cabinet. So, I did get an email over break. I was checking them. I wasn't spending total time with the family constantly, sitting on the couch there. This one guy had, hopefully you're watching, I hope, had gone through some of the beginner series, including the ones we do on Facebook, but by the way, it's tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. But he has one of these problems that I totally get. It's all great watching one of these tutorials and say, okay, makes sense, I understand it. But then when you sit down and do your own stuff, then it's like, right, how do you get started? His issue was to do a wood cabinet, like, I don't know, vanity under a sink or something. Enough talking. Let's get into it. So, we are going to be in Fusion. We're going to start with a blank document. So, one of the best tricks I can share, I think, when it comes to starting out, sometimes it's better actually approaching it the same way you would do it if you're doodling it up on a piece of paper. So, just check this out for a second and see if you can follow along. So if I go up here and I start a new sketch, and I'm going to show a lot in this here, I think. So, just remember you can rewind and watch more. So if I open a sketch on the top plane here, and I'm just going to hit the S key and do a center rectangle, and I'm going to kind of like place the height and the width of this vanity. We're going to do it in millimeters. So we're going to make it 550 wide. I'm going to hit tab. That's going to get me over to the width of it. I'm going to make it 1000 in width. So we kind of like made a pretty big rectangle right there, right? So this is kind of like the bottom of the cabinet. Now, with the bottom of the cabinet here, kind of like drawn up, we could draw up the top of the cabinet. So I'm going to use the offset plane. I'm going to select that top plane, and I'm going to make it 550 tall. Okay, so I made a sketch that had our first rectangle. Now we offset the plane here, got this plane. I'm going to right-click, create a sketch on that. And then, remember, we can use that project function. Hopefully you hadn't forgotten that from last year. P for project. P for project. And I'm going to select these 4 edges here of our first rectangle. So I'm going to hit OK. And when I spin, right, now you can kind of like see this here. And by the way, this is not isometric. Don't forget that you can right-click here, or it's not in perspective. Right-click here, perspective of all faces. That's what I normally have. So now we kind of like see the bottom. We see the top. Now, if you do want to connect these to kind of like make it look somewhat like if you were sketching it up on paper, don't forget, if you turn on 3D sketches over here in this normal sketch dialog, hit L for line, we can actually kind of like draw up the sides of this cabinet. Now it starts looking a little bit like what I would be drawing up if I was kind of like trying to sketch up a cabinet for somebody, right? Like if one of you guys came and said, hey, draw something up on a piece of paper, I probably would draw something up like this view right here. So this is kind of like the shape of the cabinet here. Now notice I'm in a standard part file. I haven't done anything over here yet. I'm going to continue laying out this cabinet as kind of like I would if I was drawing it up on a piece of paper. So next I want to put in a kind of like a little door here and a couple of drawers. So I can't, if I turn my origin on, you can see that that is sitting in the center there. Well, we have a couple of different options how we could get a plane out here we can sketch on. One would be to offset plane, select here, and then we could do the math, whatever that is. But you can actually also, here's one of these tricks, you can actually also go over here and say measure. And then I could say measure from that plane right there to that line, and it will put the plane right where that intersection is. Okay, so hit up there, hit measure, and measure from the original plane to that edge, and you will get that plane to that spot. You could also have gone up to the construction and done like plane through two edges and selected the two blue edges. That would have been fine too. But now we have a plane right here we can draw on. So let's start another sketch. Right click, new sketch. It's gonna go normal too. First, I'm just gonna sketch a door. I'll sketch a door like that. Let's put some dimensions on it. So I'm gonna make it maybe 300 wide, and let's make it 380 tall. I'm just making the numbers up, right? Then we can go in here, put some kind of a distance from here to this intersection here, 75 maybe. And then I want to place it height-wise. We got to fully define it, right? So we can go in here. Now, what is this value? So we made it 550 tall minus 318 divided. Well, we can't just type that in, right? Don't forget you can do math in here. 550 minus the 380 we made at the gate, close the bracket, and divide that by 2. Now that was 85. Place that in the center. Don't forget you can do that. So now that is fully defined. Let's create the drawers. Go in here, kind of like sketch those up. Now these could absolutely, we could pattern these. That maybe be good. I'm going to do a collinear between here and here because I know I want those to be in the same length. Same line, I should say. Let's make it 100. Let's make it 300, like you did the width of that. And then also let's place this out from here to here. 75. Then we could choose to use the sketch pattern under sketch and just select those 3 here, or the 4 edges. So now we kind of like get, you see how we get those down there? I like to use spacing, and we want 3 of them, and that's fine. Let's make it 150 between them maybe. Okay, hit OK. So what we have now, I'm going to end this sketch. Turn the origin off. What we have right now, drawn up in a couple of different sketches, all in this unsaved document right here, one document, is kind of my paper drawing. Okay, so I see a couple of people have some issues. Yeah, well, I'm not the only one, huh? Why 2 clicks at the end of the line? I'm drawing 2 clicks in the end will just end the line. So if I sketch something and if I double click, it'll end the line. Okay, I hope you guys restart a web browser and your stream is back. I hope we don't. I'm gonna get the Google Chrome working by tomorrow for sure. Right now I'm just holding along with the Internet Explorer. Okay, so this is kind of like our paper sketch that you would draw up if you were kind of like doing it on a pad of paper. Now, the cool thing about this is we can totally now start converting this into models. And this is a really great way to kind of like design things like this. So, now, we've talked about this before, but, you know, I'm not expecting everybody to watching every live stream. Now we want to break it into actually component. Right now we just have a bunch of sketches inside of one file. We could continue doing bodies as we've done before, but we want to break it into components, right? The cabinet is going to be a component. The door that opens up is going to be a component. The drawer is going to be a component. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to right click and say new component. And as soon as I do that, you will see that our icon up here becomes like, it looks like an assembly icon. Now, here is an important thing. Name features. So slow left click, name features. So I'm going to call this one cabinet because that's what it's going to be, the cabinet, the first one here. And you will see the cabinet that we just created has a little fish eye turned on there. There's nothing in here right now. If I go back to our top here and turn that fisheye on, then that's where that sketch we just created, those free sketches we just created. Layout sketch is what I call this, layout sketching, skeleton sketching, master modeling, whatever you want to call this thing. So in that cabinet file, I don't have anything right now, I am going to start a sketch. And I'm going to start the sketch on the same plane we started our original sketch on. And then I'm going to hit P for project. And now I'm borrowing the edges from that first sketch we created. So I'm going to click right here and borrow those 4 edges for that. I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to hit OK to that. So now in that sketch, I now just have those 4 edges. I'm actually going to hit O for offset. And I am going to be able to kind of like create the thickness of the walls of the cabinet of this one here. So let's go in here. Now let me just rotate it around. Okay, hit OK. So we can still see kind of like the shadow of our master sketch. I can turn, that one is sitting up here. We can turn that off. So in the cabinet sketch right now, we just have the projected 4 edges and the offset. I hope this makes sense. Now we can go ahead and we can extrude that out. So hit Q and extrude that. Just going to make sure we select that edge there, right? And we can give that a height. Now you remember that I said that the height was going to be 550 before, but you could actually go up here and say to object and then select that endpoint right up there. Okay? So that means that now, I'm just going to hit OK. We don't have the holes yet for our drawers and anything. But this cabinet right here is totally driven by that first sketch, or the first series of sketches we created in here. Let me just turn them back on. These first sketches in here. And what I mean by that is that if I go in now, and I go into our first sketch, the very first sketch we created, and I change this 1000 to 1500 and hit OK, our cabinet became 1500. And if we go in and we change that first plane we created in the beginning, and we change that to 800, the cabinet becomes 800. I want to talk more about this on the live streams. I want to repeat this. This is what parametric modeling and design kind of means in the terms of working with it, that I can change a set of dimensions and other things kind of like follows along. Okay, so we're changing that skeleton sketches up here, these free sketches we created, and our model, our cabinet component follows along. Now I'm going to go back and turn the fisheye on that one because I'm not quite done with it. I am going to be in that one, and I am going to open up a sketch on that face, create a sketch, and I can hit P for project, and I can now borrow those other edges we saw before for these different, for the door and for the rough out for the drawers. Okay, so I've selected all those. Then we can hit Q and we can select those, And again, I want to cut. If you go that way, it becomes a solid. I'm going to go the other way. It's going to be a cutout. Of course, I don't just want to leave it some weird distance. I'm going to say up to object and select the back edge, the back side of the cabinet. Okay, so that means that now if we went back to the first sketch in this cabinet and we change the offset value, the thickness, everything will follow along. So just like this, we have kind of created our first component in this one here. Now let's just move on. How did you select the others borders and apply the same thickness? I literally just selected them all within that one command. If I go in and hit edit, you will see I had 4 selected. I didn't control select. I just click, 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 click. Right? If I hit the little X up here, I select that area, that area, that area, that area. Just one left click per item. Okay, I'm going to move on here with this because I want to show you some pretty cool stuff, I think. So this is kind of like the foundation of our cabinet, and we have already established that this is controlled by our sketches here, our skeleton we created that is sitting up here under the first one. Now we need more objects here. Let's create a door for this. Is that what you call it, a door? I don't know if this. So I'm going to right click up on our go back to our top component here. I'm going to right click and say new component. I'm going to slow left click. That's how we can rename it. If you don't get in the habit of renaming this stuff, geez, then you just get lost, right? So this is the door. Now again, just like with the cabinet, there's nothing in this file right now. I just created it. There's nothing. See down here in the history line? Completely flat, right? Now, I'm going to do what we did before. I'm going to open a new sketch. I'm going to start on that face. I am going to, again, borrow, I like to say steal, those edges that we already kind of like have established here. But the door is going to be bigger than this, right? So I'm going to hit another O for offset, and I'm just going to select this and offset it out a little bit. Whatever, right? So now it's a little bit bigger here. Q, and now if I select these two areas here, I can now add some thickness to this. So now if I go back up and turn this on, we now have the cabinet, we have the door right here, and still remember that everything is controlled by these sketches. So if we decided we were going to move that very first, if we decided we were going to go ahead and go into the first sketch and change the distance of the location, right? If we decided we were going to make this one 85 of this, move that over a little bit because the customer calls you up and says we're going to change that. Because everything else is derived on that, it moves along. All the other things follows because it follows that. Okay, so I hope that kind of makes sense. Now, a couple of important steps here to move on is that when we create new components, they float in space. I'm going to just do a little undo to get them back again. Okay, that's extremely important. Now you have two options so I'm going to decide that the cabinet is on the floor and is not moving. You got to decide that one of the cabinets will not move. So at the cabinet, you can either right click one of the cabinets. No, one of the components don't move. You could either go up here and you could say ground, and you could ground it, but just means that you put a thumb tag in it here. I'm going to unground it again. You can also go up and use this as built joint. And if you do that, use as built joint and select the cabinet with our top assembly, then we're actually aligning, and we have rigid turned on over here. We're actually aligning the two origins together. It kind of does the same thing as the thumb, as grounding it. I think that I'm not sure. I think most people would say that that's a better practice what we just did using this build joint. Now this cabinet is not moving. It's grounded. The door, though, is still moving. Well, we can use that build as joint continuing. So I'm going to go back in here and say build as build joint. I'm not even pronouncing it correctly. And I'm going to select the cabinet and the door. But I don't want it to be rigid. I want the door to be able to move, right? So you can go over here and you could say, well, what do I want to select out of this that I want that door to do? I want it to revolute. So I'm going to select revolute. Then it's looking for a position to revolute around. And I'm just going to go over here and you will see, as I'm zooming in, that this little flag appears. And this is the corner where I want it to revolute around. Of course, the cabinet spins around right now, not the door. That's okay if I hit the play button over here. Don't worry about that. That's just because right now Fusion is just showing you the movement, not necessarily how things was built. So I'm going to hit OK to that. And what we now have is that door moving. Now, that door is some kind of magic, right? Because it just spins around. It's close. Now we have something up here under Assemble called context sets. You can enable context sets. Context sets means that we are saying what can touch it, what is going to hit each other or not. So I'm going to right click on context set, new context set, and I'm going to select bodies or components. I'm going to select the cabinet and the door and hit OK. And now it will stop. It will literally just open up like this. Now, I know some of you guys are like, okay, you're talking about magic? Don't you think it needs a hint? Yes, absolutely. If I was going to continue modeling this up and make it look real, I would add the hinges. We've done that before in other live streams. We made the box where we went up to McMaster and downloaded and hints and installed that and with all the movements. So you can definitely check out that live stream. That live stream was modeled the way you want. So if you search that one, yes. But this here is actually pretty great as a in a concept stage, right? I'm just kind of like still proving things out for my customer here to make sure that we are all kind of like on the same page here. So this door is going to open up and down. Like I said, yes, you can absolutely go to McMaster and download the hardware and stuff like that. Now, I know I'm going to be running out of time, so I just want to wrap this up because I really wanted to show as much as I could. So I'm going to go ahead and do one of the drawers also. So actually, hang on a second. Let's right click and hit appearances. I just realized that a lot of the guys who are in here are probably woodworkers. You're probably hurting yourself by watching this being modeled out of steel. That's better. Okay, whew, much better. So now we have some wood here. Now let's go ahead and do one of the drawers. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. Repetition is key in all learning. Right click, new component, slow left click. I'm going to call this one drawer. I think that's how you spell it. I'm going to do what I did before. I'm going to open up a sketch right on that face right there. Now right now it's looking to capture the position. That's because I left that door open. I'm going to just close that. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to do what I did before. P for project. And I'm going to project these edges here, right? So now again, if we move the drawers around, the location, everything will move with it. I'm going to hit O for offset. So I'm again, it's going to make the draw a little bit bigger. Let's make this like that. I'm going to do exactly what I did before. Q and select these two areas here. And I can now make the thickness of the draw. Okay. So that's kind of like the front of the draw here. Now, don't forget, that thing is also floating around, not what I want. So we can again go in and say assemble, as built joint. I'm going to select the cabinet again because that's the one we grounded. The draw, this one though, I don't want to revolute. No, we want this one to slide, right? So now I can go in with the slider and add a slide to this draw and hit OK to that. So now you will see that the draw can slide back and forth just like you want. Again, you're like, well, wait a minute. It hits the part. We're going to do another context set. Right click, new context set, draw, cabinet. OK. Now it goes out and now it hits and it can't go any further. Oops, well, it can if you pull it the wrong way. Also be aware of that you can actually go over to the joints. And in here, you can right click and you can say edit joint limits. And we can actually go in here. I'm just going to make sure I get this right. Turn a minimum and a maximum. So maybe we want this to be, this is something that I sometimes get a little bit confused about. Let's see here. 300 minus 300. Hang on. So now, there's something goofy with that one, huh? It goes right through. Maybe it's because I'm up here. Okay. So now you will see that it hits and closes just like the draw here. Now a couple of things. That is a metal draw. That's not going to work. So let's just drag that over to there. We go. And I want to show you one more thing because this draw component, right, is only the front here. If I was showing that to the customer kind of like going to laugh at me and be like, dude, that's an empty draw. So there is more to this. There's more to this draw than just the front plate, right? There's other stuff. So what we could do was we have all the time create new components by going up here, right click and set new components. We can also go down to the draw, make that active, right click on that and say new component. Now suddenly the draw became a sub-assembly by terms. That now suddenly that has components inside of it. So now we could go ahead and say, let's open a new sketch with that. And now I'm running out of time. Select the back of the draw and hit P for project again. And we could now borrow this inside edge right there. O for offset. Let's give it a little bit of thickness to the inside of this one, -10. Almost wrapping up here, folks. Hit alpha line and close these two off. Q. And now we can make the draw here. And we made it open 300, so it's probably going to go at least 320 long, right? So now we kind of like are working within that drawer. We're now working with these as a sub-assembly. Let's create the back here too. So we could, that's probably going to be another component within that, the back. So this would be, I don't know what you would call this. Bottom and side. Whoops. So I really recommend that you're getting in the habit of renaming these, right? Because if you don't, you can really get yourself in trouble when you're trying to find this. So going to make that one active, and we could literally probably just go in here, start a new sketch on that backside there, and let's just wrap this up by dragging a rectangle from here down to here and extrude some thickness out on that. Let's go 10. Right, so now we kind of like have that put together there. Now, before I wrap this up, these are still moving around, right? I never got these in place. And you could say, you could do as built joint. You could actually also, here for this drawer here we created, you could actually also use rigid group. And if you're using rigid group, you're selecting those three components in here, including the child components. It will follow that first built as joint as we did there. And now we have that drawer there. Let's go back to the top. And appearances, drag that over on top of that so it all becomes oak. Woo, right on the 30-minute mark. 128 people in the live stream today. Awesome. So I really hope that this kind of showed you how you could model all this up as components, how you could go in, and it's all driven again from that first 3 sketches that was created in the beginning of this. We could actually probably, maybe we do that next week, we continue working with this one, because we could start talking about, you know, how detailed do we want to be. Another thing that could be interesting is starting adding parameters to this, so we could drive it all with parameters. But you know what? That is up to you. You let me know in the comments area if you want that. We'll throw that on the live stream for next week. I hope that was useful. Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time, as always, to join these live streams every day for 3 p.m. Eastern. My email address should be down in the... Now, I'm actually not sure if it is down in the comment area, just because I'm changing browsers, I guess. But whatever. We'll figure it all out. Tomorrow we should be back on Chrome. Life is good. Guys, hope you have an awesome, awesome day. And hope to see you tomorrow. Take care, folks.